Happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday to you, Carlos. I love your energy, man. Every Friday morning, you always bring it.
I love the weekend, not because it's the time that you don't work, because sometimes we have a longer list over the weekend to do a bunch of other stuff. You know, I love the idea that then you can have some time with the family. Some time that probably, let's say, if you are a reader, you may take a couple of hours to read. If you're a car guy, you can, or a gal, you can go and work on your car. Or my wife loved to go out and then sometimes like go to the beach, or go to the mall or do something. So something that then we can do as a family. So I love the idea that we're ready for it. Sometimes we just stay inside and sleep because it's gonna be cold this weekend.
Yeah, cold in Florida is relative, right? Like we're getting a blizzard here in the Northeast this coming weekend. So I'll be spending some time outside exercising by shoveling snow and using the snow blower. So yeah, it's all relative, my friend. But yes, it is good to get a break. And quite frankly, that time away from work sometimes helps you get your mind in order for work, right? Your subconscious starts processing all the stuff that happened during the week and what's coming for the next week, and you start working on some things and get some of those bright ideas. Jump on your phone, send yourself a quick Slack or some message just to kind of make sure you don't forget the bright idea that you had.
Do you send yourself messages or do you have an app? I have tried so many things,
Hmm.
but email is still my tool. Like I send myself an email because I know that if I see that when I go on Monday and I have 100 new emails, I'm like, okay, wait, I need to look at something. I hate
Yeah.
having emails.
Yeah, I kind of do. I think things to read or watch, I'll send myself a Slack because I'm usually on my phone when I discover it and send myself a Slack. But things I need to do, I'm the same way. I'll send myself an email so that then I see it in the inbox and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to do this. So yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting that this past week there was a lot of conversation about these guys,
Hmm.
like the 5G and what the airlines and all that kind of stuff. And we talk about technology here, and I love to get your take on it. Like for a business standpoint, are you more of a Android guy or are you more of an iPhone guy? Um, let's start there.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw on Reddit this week. There's a subreddit called "Data is Beautiful" or something like that, and kind of people do animations of different data. And the one that I caught my eye this week was the one that was showing market share by mobile device maker. Starting, I don't know when. Must have been starting kind of late '80s or into the '90s, and showing Nokia and Motorola and some of these different brands as they came up. So for me, I was you know an early cell phone adopter, probably before I should have, as like a young guy in my 20s. uh, Loved my Motorola StarTAC back in the day, right? If you remember that phone, that was one of the greatest.
Yeah.
But because I went to work at Microsoft early in my career, I was on the Windows based devices for a long time and really enjoyed them. I mean, like the some of those devices in the Windows Phone OS were great. The Nokia Lumia, was a really great phone with a really great camera. So I was on that kick for a while. When I eventually left Microsoft, though, I got onto iPhones because I was already an iPad user at home, and if you have one Apple device, obviously there's a benefit to having it all. So, yeah, and now as a family, the five of us, we're all iPhone users, and there's a lot of benefit to kind of all being on the same OS there. So, what about you? You Apple, Android? What are your flavor?
So I'm an Apple guy right now for the mobile devices.
Hmm.
I started like that. I have I don't remember if it was a Nokia or a Kyocera. My first phone was like the longer one that had like the antenna that you pull out.
Oh yeah.
I remember I got that, and my mom needed to sign up because I was like I was really young and I was
Hmm.
starting to work, but I was involved in technology. So after years, like you mentioned, the Star Tag, all those going through, like you mentioned, it was interesting to see the interface that in some of them it was similar, in some of them were completely different. uh, but like you said, I decided to make myself not to have to support my family with devices, like my own family, because
Yeah.
like, if you think about it, Your family is like your business. And when you had to protect it from other things, I remember early on, probably when the phones did not have a built-in flashlight. I don't know if you remember that,
Hmm.
but there was an app that all of a sudden started popping out, and everybody was downloading it, and all of a sudden everybody found out that it was capturing information. That was what took me to say, no more Android, and I'm switching to a platform. And again, I'm picking a side, and we can have a discussion with someone else, but the idea of protecting my family, or in this case, could be a business, from what can be happening outside, because I don't want to have to be thinking about, like, I was getting to the house and like my phone will not work for something, or someone in the family, hey, I'm trying this and it doesn't work, and it was my phone was different than theirs, so then mine works and theirs didn't. uh, so picking up a way to have a simple device that could work, like you said, anywhere. And then when I find out the Apple TV connect, and I can take the iPad and project, and I like the Apple Macs, but I was a PC guy.
Hmm.
I'm still a PC guy,
Yeah.
but that interaction that I'm like, oh, I want to show something right now, and I could be on the living room and I could just go bloop, and it appear on the TV. And then it was technically a closed system because you needed to be Mac. You still mostly have to do it that way. But it made me think about the businesses, that a
Mhm.
lot of times they are impacted by different situations, and they need to, on this time, protect what they have. Uh,
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, right? Is that, having a consistent environment, consistent, hardware profile, standard set of software and applications, how do you secure what you have, right? If you have an inconsistent set of applications, tools, devices, those kind of things. So there's definitely some benefit to standardizing, and then having, this is kind of our supported profile, especially in the workplace, right? So a lot of our managed service providers that we work with on a daily basis, they very much develop those standard profiles. And it's not to say that everybody in the organization has to have the same um, profile. You can have a couple of different variations of it, because the needs of a software developer and the workstation that they're going to sit in front of all day is different than someone who sits in marketing or in sales or in finance, right? But there needs to at least be some consistency as an organization, and base layers of security, right? There's things that you would do. You wouldn't, if you were putting in a home security system, you wouldn't put it into a couple of rooms in the house, but leave others wide open, right? There's a base layer of security that has to wrap around all of it.
and when you said that, thinking about it, one of the key pieces of challenging for a company is their email platform. And
Mhm.
I get calls from friends constantly. Um, hey, I receive an email, and I thought that it was a secure or a trusted uh, email from someone, and then all of a sudden, now I cannot access my account for X, Y, or Z. Um, how important should a leader consider how to protect that platform, their email
Yeah.
platform for business?
Well, and that's, the cybersecurity researchers tell us that business email is the number one attack surface, right? That's what, why would you work hard? Like, there are other ways, right? I was unfortunately reading another, kind of, I mentioned Reddit frequently here, so I keep an eye on a couple of different subreddits. In one, a company had been hit by ransomware this week, a small three-person IT organization, and they came to the MSP subreddit and were asking for advice on how to deal with it. Uh, and searching for help. The unfortunate thing is that, in some cases people are opening different ports in the firewall, and then people know to look at those ports and try to find entry, and use different attack techniques to come in through the firewall. In a lot of cases, they don't even need to work that hard. Uh, I get spam email, you get it, everybody gets it every day. Sometimes Hotmail or Google or whatever email platform you use as a consumer is good about at least putting it in your junk folder, but it doesn't always make it there. Sometimes, you'll get something that looks like an Amazon email, that there's been a problem with your order, kind of like the story that you told about your dad, right? Like, very common because a lot of people shop on Amazon all the time. And so if you get somebody with that kind of, social engineer, kind of like, oh, I don't want there to be a problem with my order. Like, I better click this and figure out what the issue is. And then it's already too late because now whatever the payload is of that virus or something, or the phishing attempt, they've now got your credentials. So, there's obviously a lot of people counting on that, but a business email security solution is critical. There are some built-in solutions for some of the business email platforms like Microsoft 365, but what we find is that they only catch a certain amount, and that many of our MSP partners that we work with choose instead to layer different solutions on top of that to try to catch as much as possible. Uh, the last thing you want is a user to have to sit there and look at an email and make a decision. If they make the wrong decision, then it's all done. If you can neutralize the threat before it gets to them, then obviously that's the best approach to take.
And it's important to also understand that sometimes a company is evolving and trying new things, and all of a sudden someone within the company subscribe the company for a new service, and you start getting emails, and all of a sudden you don't know if that's a valid email or not. So actually protecting yourself, and I think education is a critical factor that a lot of times companies don't pay a lot of attention because they downplay it.
Hmm.
But I think educating the user base, and doesn't have to be the exact same way, but could be something simple as communicating, letting people know what is happening. Because if I don't know that there's a new solution being implemented, will I click on the email? Should I open it? Um, I know that, like you said, I get a bunch of stuff every day, um, and like I'm starting to get proposals for business. That's what I think. Hey, we have a business proposal for you,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, how do you know about me? Let's start there. How do you know about me? And I think that it's important for a company to realize that if they don't protect themselves from those threats coming externally, they can open themselves to what is called a 0 day attack.
Hmm.
Like these guys, I was reading the other day, we talk about business. So let's say our business, we help companies protect their data, could be on premise, in the cloud, in different format. Their business is breaking into other people networks.
Hmm.
That is their business. And like they are really good at it because they're constantly practicing. Um, what do you think about those 0 day attacks? Is that the fault of a company that haven't paid attention to it? Should they pay attention to it and do something different? What do you think about that?
Yeah, and one of the things that we spend, part of our day, again, kind of referring to our day jobs here, but is this NIST framework. It's a cybersecurity framework model that we are utilizing here, but it's an industry standard, or kind of developing as a standard, right? And it goes through these phases of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So, and you just dropped the link in the chat, so thank you for sharing that. The framework gives you a model where, a lot of people think about it as kind of, detect is the stage where you're all of a sudden like, think something's not right. I can't get a website. I can't log into a machine. I can't log into a server. So obviously something has now happened. And now how do we respond to that? How do we recover from that? But if you look in the framework, you've got identify and protect as stages before it. So what a lot of people are doing is just thinking about, that attack, and when it happens, they may not even be doing a great job, quite frankly, thinking about that and how it happens and like what they're going to do to recover. That was unfortunately the story that played out in that Reddit post I was describing earlier, is that the company, a help desk technician, was the one asking the questions, and like he's trying to do what he feels is right and follow a model for how to respond to ransomware incidents. But if you never planned for this, and kind of how you protect and obviously mitigate risk, and then you didn't plan for how you're going to respond and recover afterwards, um, then you see just a lot of stuff happening, right? And are those the right things, the actions that people are taking? So it's kind of like any emergency. If you've ever done a fire drill in your home, kids are very used to doing it at school, right? The schools are good. They know they need to get people to practice it, not just talk about it, but actually get up, go out the exits, meet at the places, right? Most of us don't do that stuff at our homes, do a fire drill. Maybe you talked about it, but did you practice it with your family? Get the kids, get the pets, get out. How do you do it? So it's like any kind of emergency situation. If you don't practice it, if you don't drill it, then it's not going to be part of the muscle memory. So when that event occurs, people are oftentimes just sitting there unsure of what to do. And obviously, that's what the attackers count on. That's why they hit ransomware and all these kind of other ways to exploit these weaknesses that people have, both in their technology and in just the human side of the reaction.
And you just mentioned something interesting, the human side. We're dealing with people, and normally people like to be helpful. And sometimes the attacker look at that and understand that. So they say, oh, somebody may want to be helpful. How do I exploit that? And that's what happened in those 0 day attacks. They find something that they can get in, and they combine it with asking someone for prior a little bit of help. And within a company, it's really important to understand how that happened. And that comes through the process of actually training,
Hmm.
and could be cybersecurity, could be product training. But the idea that we take the time, and it doesn't have to be a lot. That's the thing. Training doesn't have to be an 8 hour long training about what it is. No, it could be something small, but training your workforce. And if the workforce is just you and your spouse, like some of our customers, or if your training is about you and your teams, because without the training, then you're not gonna know how to respond. I don't know,
Hmm.
when you start driving, um, like, did you remember where to put your feet at the beginning?
Hmm.
It had to be through practice. I don't know
Right.
you, but to me, I had to like go through a lot of wait. Which one? I was pressing the gas when I was supposed to press the brake.
Yeah, I think it is. It's the muscle memory of kind of how you're going to respond to these different incidents and having a sense of it. I always cringe a little bit when we talk in cybersecurity readiness about end user training, because that's to me the weakest point, right? Like, is people just in the normal course of their day, they're clicking on messages, they're clicking on attachments, they're doing things as they normally would. Um, so I think, in terms of the preparation, the protection stage of the NIST framework, how do I do as much as I can to put as little risk in front of them as possible? We must obviously train them. We must practice. We must give them examples. So I think that doing at least annual cybersecurity training with your staff is really an important step, just to kind of remind them. Uh, I'm sure that there are some companies who do it maybe biannually or something, but I think you have to have some sort of regular training that gets in front of them. Using the right set of tools to protect them and limit the attack surface as much as possible is really a critical step. And if you don't have that skill set in house, if you're a small business or even a mid-sized company, enterprise companies, would tend to have more security staff on board. But I think for the smaller organizations, this is where the managed service provider community is out there and has some very effective offerings where they've been through this, they've seen the challenges, they know how to secure an organization and put that base layer of security around the whole company, including business email, whether that's you're hosting your own email on a Microsoft Exchange server, or if you're using Exchange Online, part of Microsoft 365, or even Google Workplace. So there are different solutions that are out there depending on the tools that you use for email. But securing that is really a key piece. And then having the detection and monitoring software deployed as well. So if for some reason something starts to happen, it doesn't have to be a foregone conclusion that it's going to infect the entire network and lock everybody up. There are ways to isolate, detect it as soon as it starts happening, and then isolate from the rest of the network so that not everyone becomes infected. And now it's a lot easier to deal with, the origination point of that infection versus having the entire network infected and locked up and backups. One of the techniques that was described in this thread I keep referring to from this week is that the ransomware was likely present in the network for several weeks because it had already gone through to the backups and encrypted the backups, changed the owners of the backups, those kind of things from a security standpoint before it actually launched on the rest of the network. So if the idea was, oh, we'll just recover from the backups were the first to be hit in the way that this attack was executed. So again, incredibly unfortunate, but you need all these elements kind of deployed at once, and it is it's a moving target, right? The techniques and the tactics evolve every single day.
And that's a really good point. They go probably for what you don't think that they're going to be going after right away.
Mhm.
Because you don't think, hey, it's a backup, they're not going to go there. But in their case, they're trying to gain access to everything, so you have to pay them. And I think that if you don't have the people in house, as you mentioned, the customers should take the time to connect with somebody in their community or bring someone in, because I think that that knowledge, like I remember, there's an organization that I'm a part of that they have a lot of senior citizens,
Mhm.
and they are asking us, hey, can you guys do a tech workshop for us? Because we understand that there's some security issues. They don't use that term, but what they're talking about, hey, and we don't want to risk it. Like, we want to still be able to talk to our grandson or granddaughter or our family. In their case, that's what is on their mind, but they're asking for help. So businesses should also be looking to partner with someone that not only can help them through the training process, through the implementation, but probably the next one is to help them craft a true plan. And that
Mhm.
should be an incident response, and that could be remediation, but also be able to recover their business. What, like, I remember when I was leading the different companies, in one of them, we had live like a hot site that in minutes we can switch production from one location to another one. Not everybody could do that, but how important in your experience have been having a plan or having something to respond when there's an issue?
Yeah, there's well, there are many sayings here, but the man plans, God laughs, right? Is kind of one thing, right? It's like, and then I think, is it a Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face or something like that, right? Like, so there are these kind of things, but I had earlier in my adult life here, I spent 6 years in the Army National Guard. You do a lot of training in the military, and you train how you fight like you train. That was the expression that we went and used over and over again. You have to train with a certain amount of intensity, like it's the real thing. I think, again, people feel silly perhaps sometimes, or they'll, we use backup software. Like, why do we need to test it? It's from a reputable company. I'm sure it's going to be fine if we ever need to restore it. And it's like, part of it is testing the technology to make sure that it actually works as intended, because the thing to remember about any technology is that software is created by human beings. Human beings are inherently flawed. None of us are perfect. People make mistakes. Obviously, that's why we do testing and software development, and those kind of things go through a QA process to make sure it's good. But I think testing the software is one piece of it. Testing the people and the procedures is the other part, right? So just because the software has a restoration process, have you ever executed it? Do you understand how that actually works? Do your people know how to do it? How do I do it in such a way that, one of the things we talk about is the restore point in in the world of backups. So when did we last back up, right? Like, Was it a week ago? Was it an hour ago? Are we backing up several times a day or simply once a day? If I were to run the backup restoration now, am I going back to last night? And what am I going to lose for data in the meantime? And how long does it take to actually restore that? So there are many things that people think they know about how that's all going to work that without a plan, without going through the testing process to do that restoration, it's really theoretical. And so it helps to run the actual time and see based on our network, our computers, our size of storage, here's, our network speed, here's how long it's actually going to take and kind of where we would get back to. And then you figure out, is that sufficient for your business? Because maybe it's not, and now you actually need to do some more work to make the time frame to recovery shorter to increase the speed of it. These are the different points that must be considered. So again, you've got to have a plan for all of this stuff, and then you've actually got to run the plan and test it.
And that's the key. You need to be able to not only build a plan, because some people have a paper plan, but they're not testing it. They're
Hmm.
not going through the process of actually looking at it and doing a recovery. Hey, can we do a recovery of all of our systems or our process? Because that's the other piece. The technology is great, but what about us?
Hmm.
Can we, if our building blows up, like there's a fire or something, can we continue to work? And I think that that's something that the pandemic hit a lot of businesses. It was not that they didn't have the technology to be able to operate.
Yeah.
They have never put their plan into action, so it affected them. So as a company, it's very important to understand that not only you should back up your data, implement it, but you should then take, and if you are not working with someone, that you actually look into how can you bring someone in. Could be once a quarter, once a year, but that it will help you looking through that to help you, so you can make sure, hey, we have seen all the cases that something happened and all of a sudden that business tank because they didn't have the processes in place to be able to recover or to
Right.
continue operation.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people don't expect this. We in our day-to-day work here at Datto have backup continuity, disaster recovery devices that sit on premise in an organization, but then also backs up to the cloud, so you've got some redundancy. Unfortunately, the nature of just whether it's climate change is to blame or just whatever you want to say, Hurricane Sandy, right? Like almost 10 years ago. Um, had a huge impact on the Northeast, right? We've seen tornadoes and those kind of events go across the middle of the United States this year, or last year, I should say, now that we've turned the calendar, right? But these things, the things that never used to happen or happen once in 100 years now seem to happen every year. So these natural disaster events are kind of one scenario. The ransomware attacks are yet another. But it all comes back to the fact that we have to have a plan for how this is all going to uh, how we're going to carry on, right? I think your mention of the pandemic certainly caused a lot of organizations because they were shutting down their physical sites and pushing everybody into home offices. It caused a lot of people to figure out how they actually work remotely, right? How do we work as a distributed organization? Um, I suspect that not enough of them have figured out how do we do that securely, right? There's probably still a lot of security exposure that was created because of the move to work from home. Um, a lot of technology providers, Microsoft as well. I've seen them talk more about kind of remote work and hybrid work scenarios, and they know this is going to continue. How do we provide security and tools for that environment in a way that is kind of moving with the threats as they're kind of continuing? You might have a good amount of protection for everybody when they're in the network, at the office, sitting behind the firewall. Now, what happens when they're at home, connected to their cable modem or their neighbor's Wi-Fi for whatever they're getting it, um, and connecting that way. Is the security posture the same? And again, do we have a plan for this?
That is definitely extremely important. So those 5 ways how you should Make sure that you constantly are protecting your data, that you're actually looking at the plan that you have, that
Mhm.
you're training your people, that you're looking at if something happened, uh, that you don't get attacked right away. But most important, make sure that how you're receiving information is protected. My friends, it has been awesome to see you again. 30 minutes have passed. We had a lot of fun. It's Friday, but we need to start doing more things. So make sure that next week you connect back with us here and through all of our platform. Mike, it was awesome to see you again. Don't spend too much time outside because you're gonna get frozen like a popsicle. I remember those times when I was upstairs.
Don't worry, I'll think about how you and your wife are at the beach or doing something fun outside, albeit in, the cold of Florida. So we'll have a
It's
good
gonna be
weekend.
34. It's gonna be 34, so we cannot go out.
No, no.
Well, my friends, have an awesome, awesome weekend, my friends. Take care.